We're live. Welcome, welcome, welcome to For Feck's Sake Marketing Adventures with Carmel, where we share some tips, tricks, and insights all about marketing and how to use video within it. But we also bring you some inspiring and real business builders and exceptional entrepreneurs who have overcome some hurdles in their business, and they have some gold to share with us. And, why reinvent the wheel? Let's learn from others. So if you're watching this on social media, give us a thumbs up, write a comment in as we're live. Please ask any questions you'd like to, or if you'd like to ask them afterwards, we will get back to you. And also, if you're on YouTube, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that little bell so that you can get alerted when we have these awesome interviews as well. So today I have the amazing, and it's 9 p.m. for the poor girl, Melissa. Melissa is here with me today, Melissa Badine, all the way from the US of A. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm a little further even north. I'm in Canada. And the funny thing is I like to make fun of myself because we live in Beaver Lodge, which is like the most Canadian sounding name ever for a town. So it's definitely like a hit piece to just make fun of the Canadian A kind of version.
My apologies. I knew it was over there somewhere.
They're great. I kind of wish I was in the States right now. So no, all good.
Awesome. So let me introduce you properly. So Melissa is an entrepreneur who started her business at the age of 17 and has been successfully in business full-time for over a decade. So she has grown and aligned her passions through connecting within her intuition to not only expand her success of herself, but to share it with others. Melissa is a self-confessed coffee addict would you believe I've never had a cup of coffee in my life? With mother of two who is passionate about helping her clients not only develop their intuition, so we're going to get into that shortly, but allow this to be a guiding force in their business for growth. So let's get into we're going to talk about today specifically, why am I so tired and am I taking on the energy of our clients? But before we dig into that, tell us a little bit about Melissa and how she got to here. Like, you started at the age of 17. Give us a little bit of insight into who Melissa was and who she is now.
Thank you. Honestly, I feel like there's so much of our origin stories that we might kind of miss out on, but it honestly started out with me always kind of being a hippie, like always being interested in the more natural homeopathic kind of cures and tinctures, to like taking a tea instead of a Tylenol and kind of learning different things in that avenue. And so I actually started working at a practicum place when I was in high school. From there, I was told I'd become certified, paid a certain amount to learn the training. Turned out it wasn't actual credible training. And from there, I realized I needed to start my own business and really follow my passion. So I've dived into everything from looking at it as like a body, mind, soul aspect. And the one thing I want to debunk right away is a lot of people will go, okay, great. She sounds like she's been a hippie forever. That's not me. That's a debunk I want to go into right away. I believe everybody's intuitive and I believe everybody is a healer. The thing is we are the gift that gets to decide it due to the law of free will. And so I started my business at 17 in 2005. That kind of gives you a gap on like how old I am and what I've been doing for a while. I started as a massage therapist and became registered. And then you have to take continuing education credits, which is so good for those of us who are an addict to self-help and personal development. So it just kept going from there. So then I learned everything from emotional freedom techniques to deep cellular healing to Reiki, and I became a teacher in Usui and Karuna, and then it kind of just keeps going. And it's not even to say like these certificates make me anything more than anyone else. It's just the more you actually see it, the more you realize they are all relating to each other. Like every one of these all blends very well together. And a lot of times it's our egos that kind of get in the way. And my whole goal is to debunk it and kind of go into when you say like, why am I so tired? There is a reason. And the reason is it could be on multiple different levels, but I would much rather, instead of people being reliant on like hiring me, and this is a terrible business model, by the way, but instead of people relying on me to be that healer that they need, they can't do it without me. I would much rather teach you, coach you, mentor you to help you have that ability to utilize that at any point in time in your day-to-day. So you don't have that reliance on somebody else to give you that empowerment, to give you that that support, you know that you have these abilities. And so it's something that's so unique. And I find so many people can do it. It's just whether we choose to take that on. And so I hope that that makes sense for those of you listening, and just take it in and utilize it for your everyday to day.
Cool. So what you do right now is all about using your intuition in your business and teaching other people how to do that. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And I find intuition and healing work really ties together. So I'm just going to say that that kind of does relate with a lot of it too, because when we understand like what our sign and symbol is with certain things, and how these like repetitious kind of moments continuously happen, or the perpetual cycle of what we, I guess, manifest in a certain way, it all correlates on a body, mind, soul level of where we might be attracting or deterring in a self-sabotage forum, or in a law of attraction positive manifestation forum.
Yeah.
And so
So we were talking about, and it's interesting, I interviewed a lady yesterday about burnout and the 7 signs of how to identify that you're in burnout, and basically in yourself and others. And I think at this time of year, it can become quite a relevant thing. And I know for people who work for themselves, quite often I hear them all the time, I'm exhausted, I need a break. I said it myself the other day. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait to have a break. It's like when you and I talked before, we were talking about, well, hang on, is it that we're taking on the energy of our clients? And if so, how is it that we're doing that? And I get some of what you're talking about, but for people who know nothing about this,
right.
how would we know that that may be the case?
So there's so many different things that you can kind of pay attention to, but there's a lot of people who are very natural empaths. So it's, again, like 7 signs of being burnt out. That's a great way to kind of look at it, but burnout is a big one. So if you were taking on the energy of others, you're really understanding, there's certain circumstances and places that might actually trigger you in that level. So for example, I used to work in a corporate office. Definitely not my jam, but it is for some. But the thing is I burnt out just thinking about going to that office. It was not the environment for me. And when I had to like actually ask myself why, it's because there was some misalignment. It didn't actually align for me. There was some toxicity in that environment too, which just continuously added to it. I don't do that compete, compare. I'm very much, I wish you well in your journey. I think there's more than enough for all of us. But if somebody is bringing that energy to you as an empath, you might also feel that burnout. You might also get physical symptoms as a result. Some people use words like energy vampire, things like that. I don't resonate with those words, but I do believe energy holds value. So if somebody is bringing positive energy, you will feel that. If somebody's bringing negative energy, you will also feel that. And so one thing that I always kind of say, because this is so relatable to literally anyone, but when you have coffee with somebody and you almost feel like you have a hangover after hanging out with them and you need a nap, that's the energy vampire. I don't like those words, but that's the person that's in like a negative mindset. They're not willing to take any personal development. They're not ready to take that empowerment and taking those actions towards a positive life frame for themselves. And you can give and give and give and give and give and give them all the opportunities, support, and kindness, but they're not willing to help themselves. And as a result, you will feel that burnout. You will feel tired. And as an entrepreneur, we might have that client. So I always teach healthy boundaries. And because I'm a medium too, I teach boundaries with the living, and I teach boundaries with the deceased, which is always a fun topic for people who are skeptics. But the biggest thing is energy is everything, right?
Yeah.
And so we can look at it in multiple different formats, but whether it's burnout, whether it's a specific location, like a corporate office that we just maybe and our soul does not resonate, to those people that we feel like we're getting a hangover with by just being around. It impacts on all levels.
Absolutely. And you're right. And my understanding, or how it goes into my head, is that everything vibrates, everything, and everybody vibrates. And it's that kind of mismatch of a vibrational level sometimes that gives you that feeling of a hangover. It's like, I don't know why I don't like that person, or I don't know why that person always makes me feel tired, but I just know I don't want to do it anymore. A lot of people, though, in my experience over the years, and like yourself, I've done a lot of personal development. So it is, you keep getting better at what you're doing because you keep realizing that it's working. So therefore, you become hungry for the information. But a lot of people will feel tired or burnt out, or whatever language you want to put on it, but they won't have the awareness that they have the hangover from that one person, or this is happening or that's happening. How do they begin to bring an awareness into there has to be another reason than I'm physically just tired, that I'm tired. How do they start to notice what it is rather than, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there's like so many ways we could go about this. It gets me like all excited. So there's so many different things that I would kind of point on that. Energy is everything. It's made up in everything. So let's kind of go into psychometry real quick. So that's a way that intuitives can actually read an object. So for example, let's say this
What's
was
it called? Sorry?
psychometry.
Cometry.
Psychometry is where certain mediums, like I've done missing persons cases, and this is where you're working with like the police and stuff like that. They'll give you a picture or an object of that person, and you're holding it and you're reading the energy of that. Now, some people think it's only that, but it's not. We're all capable of doing what I just said. But the thing is it's a person, a place, or a thing. We're reading that energy. So as soon as we realize we're doing that subconsciously, whether we understand it or not, no matter what, if you start to understand that you're reading the energy of where you're at, the things that you come in contact with, the people that are in your environment, in your bubble, it starts to allow you to really understand, what did you bring to the party and what are you picking up at the party? And so, for example, Costco is a big shopping corporate chain here.
Oh, it's here too. It's here too. Yeah.
I will literally do, it's called the protection cube. And I learned this from one of my mentors, Sonia Choquette. I'll give praise, but it's honestly her quick little protection cube where you go like, I can hear you better over there. I hold down the rising tides. I take the weight of the world off my shoulders and I get the fuck off my back. And when you say it, it's just one of those things where I'm like, hey, I'm good to go. Because now when I walk into Costco as an intuitive and an empath, I'm not picking up everybody else's stuff.
Yeah.
But old me as an introvert used to actually really struggle with being put in a very busy public building or place. And it actually affected me. Like I would have an anxious attack, if you will. And I've not had to be on any medication or anything for years since learning these kind of personal development techniques. And so as soon as we understand energy is everything, psychometry is the word that I kind of play into it. And that you get to take that empowerment to set a boundary, like what I just showed with the protection cube from Sonia Choquette, you can actually change your experience in it too. So like when I say boundaries of the living and boundaries of the disease, it's in business, it's personal and professional as well. Like there's so many things.
Yeah. I get it. Absolutely. And you mentioned being an introvert. So do you believe there's a difference in being that extrovert in those environments? So I wear, similar to what you have, I wear a Teflon suit in my mind. So I have a certain way of doing it. It's a bit of a flick of my wrist that I've anchored in. I went through a process and did it. So I put on my Teflon suit. My Teflon suit can stretch out and allow people in, or it can stay close to me like a suction pad and stuff just bounces off me. So exactly that, the energy. But I am more of an extroverted person.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a difference between an extrovert and an introvert and how they deal with this as well?
I used to actually think I was an extrovert, but the biggest thing is it really depends on the level of vulnerability and safety I feel in that environment. So Costco to me does not feel safe. Like it's one of those things where it's just everybody is on a mission. It's not personable. It's not the same environment as if you were at like a Christmas party at somebody's house. You know, it's very, very different. And so introvert and extrovert, I think, depends on the circumstance and the space that we're in. But you're right. I feel like we all have that opportunity to kind of understand what is right for us and understanding that we actually can change that title for ourselves too. Like I'm not a forever introvert. Put me in the right place and I'm the loudest one, but it's one of those things where normally I'm not. And so it's just kind of becoming the observer to what we're bringing in again. Like I said, what are we bringing into the party and what are we surrounded by? Kind of really.
What are we putting down and what are we picking up?
Exactly.
Exactly that. And look, I agree with you. I think there's an illusion of what an introvert and extrovert is. To me, it's how we process information. Rather than people just assume because I can be noisy that I'm extroverted. It's not always the case of somebody's behavior. I've met people that are an introvert, but they're very chatty in the right situation. So, putting people into a box isn't always the best way to do things. Now, you also mentioned about mediumship.
Yes.
And that you also put these boundaries in between the living and the departed. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, what a journey. I like to start it off and just say I was a skeptic. So it's always funny when the medium tells you that they were a skeptic, but it's because it's not like the movies. None of this is like the movies. So let's just debunk that right away. Let's go through those objections. It's not like the movies. It's not scary. But the biggest thing is we're all doing it. Like that's the first thing. So, but mind you, there's still some people. I found this out last year. It was like one of those, how old were you when you found this out? We all have a conversation in our head. So I thought. But there's some people who don't have that conversation in their head. And so I always was like, I can't let people know the voices. And then somebody else was talking about their voices. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm not so crazy. But there's seriously some people who don't have the voices. So kudos to you. I don't know what that's like, but high five for you.
It must be very quiet.
I mean, it's always kind of like, when you think of the thing where you've got 12 tabs open and music's playing in one of them, that's kind of what it's like if you don't have boundaries. So now I narrow it in. I have rules with spirit. This is something I've learned from some of my beautiful mentors along the road. I've had many, and they're all very valuable with it. But the thing is take what you like from what I'm sharing today and release the rest. But the biggest thing is set boundaries on when you want to connect, who you want to connect with. So I use angels, guides, and my mediums in the sense of like connecting to my loved ones that have crossed over. We're the middleman. It's not that I'm something special. I'm the middleman delaying messages over to the other individuals. And so I have my own loved ones that have crossed over. And so, for example, my little sister, she's the brunette in that photo. She passed away in 2017. And I had to create rules with spirit for her too. She's welcome to connect with my daughters, but if our bedroom doors are closed or if my kids ask her to leave the room, that energy does, because it's something very foreign, and kids are very susceptible. They don't have an ego like an adult does. And so it's very more easily, I guess, nurtured for them, where over time we've been told, growing up, I was told very good imagination, nice stories, Melissa, all these things. So then I was like, is it a story? Did I make that up? Did they not see this? And then it just became that psyche for me. And then over time, my ego made that my reality. So I used to see a lot more prevalent where it was all over. And then over time, you use your different clairs. And so you can see, smell, taste, touch, hear, sense, and know things. And that goes into your rules too. How do you want to connect? So rules with the living, rules with the deceased, it's all the same to me. It's just making sure that I'm playing in a game of boundary respect, and I use it in the sense of love and light. So I pray with God and angels, and I allow that to be my guiding force. As you said, Teflon, I use white light. It's all the same. I don't think we need to I don't know. Some people get really hung up on the words. So it's all the same to me. But
it's whatever works for that person. At the end of the day, as long as it's something that supports and sustains that person, that works for them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just something to kind of make it less scary due to the movies, and to make it more of your everyday experience where it can be something that gives you comfort, peace, and empowerment. Because again, when yes, their physical form is no longer here. I'm not crazy. I'm aware of that. But that their energy never dies. That is something that science has stated. Energy cannot be destroyed. It is transformed. It is never gone. So what happens with their energy? What happens with that? And that's when you really can start to listen to it. And those voices, or whether you see, hear, taste, touch, sense, smell, or know things, it can be adapted and manipulated in a way where you open yourself up to that opportunity.
So those voices that you hear in your head, and I have a few of them, because I had a great book that I read once. I actually happen to have it here. It's called Embracing Ourselves. Ooh, that way. And it talks about all the different selves. So to me, my voices in my head are my different selves. How do you identify that it's not just a different part of you, that it is maybe somebody departed?
Well, our ego wants to make this really complicated. So people that have been trying to develop intuitively, you're going to be frustrated at how easy this is. Listen to the narrative. Is it a first person or a third person? Are you hearing I, me? That's your ego. If you're hearing us, we, you, that's spirit. So then it really breaks it down where you're like, okay, now that I have a narrative, it's not that hard. And then from there, you actually need to build your connection. So like even we discussed having a connection with the living, and we have the friend that drains our energy. we are the lower frequency compared to them. They're at a higher frequency. So we actually have to raise our frequency and they have to drop their frequency in order for us to connect. So we're the bummer to them in the sense that they are drained by the time that they're done connecting with us. So it's not like an all day, every day, all the time.
Yes.
It's one of those things where it'll come and ebb and flow. And so if you take care of yourself, you drink healthy water, you continuously eat good foods, you're going to have a higher vibration. It's going to be easier for you to connect versus if you eat a lot of junk food, a lot of sugars, and your body's crashing due to poor nutrition and habits. It is different. It's more difficult. So it's just paying attention to your own energy and the boundaries that you're setting for yourself.
Awesome. So getting back to like, why am I so tired? And again, so relevant. What are some things other than the cube one that you shared with us? What are some other things that people can do to put healthy boundaries in place, whether it's with living or departed or whichever?
Yeah.
Because I would imagine that the action of putting those boundaries in place are similar, regardless.
They are intention. Everything is intention. So honestly, we want to overcomplicate everything. And that's our first mistake, because then we're overthinking it and we're putting ourselves into an anxious state. So as soon as you realize this is my goal, what do I need in order to achieve it? And then as long as I come from it from a loving space without bringing my ego to the party, it can be mutually beneficial in that sense, where it's like, thank you so much for respecting my boundary in association to, if let's say a client is over 15 minutes late, it's a reschedule. And if it's like a contract that we have, that is their session due to me having a personal respect factor. And then if it's like a personal thing, it's like, okay, if they're going to continuously no show or brush off or whatever, I'm just going to have a boundary in place where I'm not going to allow myself to be taken advantage of in that formation. We might meet in a mutual group or something else where I'm not wasting my time due to like all the other opportunities that I could utilize with it. But the intention can be just as firm as the tone in how you take it as well. It's not being aggressive. It's not being angry or, any of that. And the biggest part that I play into that, and I find any one of us can, is utilizing like the ho'opono, which is that Hawaiian prayer where you actually just utilize, thank you, I love you, I forgive you, and I'm sorry. And so then that changes the energy on all of it. There's no anger or animosity in like the boundaries that I set. It's just, I'm doing what's best for me and my family, and I really appreciate your respect in that factor. And when it comes off in that way, it's really hard for people to be mad at you for trying to, set a healthy boundary for you and your family when you say it in such a format where instead of coming in aggressive, or it's like, well, last time you were X amount late, and it's a different tone. And so intention, tone, and the energy that you bring to it, I think, is a game changer for all of us.
Yeah. And I know the reason I'm asking this a bit deeper is because I know some people who say, oh, but I don't want them to not like me, or because we are inherently as human beings driven by the need to be liked, because that's how we survived. We build community and we have to be liked. So sometimes people, especially people when they're building their own business, they're almost prepared to put up with some stuff that previously wouldn't have been, in their boundary at all. They wouldn't have ever put up with it, but they're prepared to put up with it sometimes for the money or so that the people won't dislike me. So how do you turn that around when people are at that stage? They're starting a new business, they're working for people, they don't want to work for that client, but God, they can't say no because they're getting the money coming in.
Yeah, I think like I utilize some of the cheesiest sayings ever, but they really do work. So vibe with our tribe, rule number one. So if you're going to be a pushover, you're going to attract that, and it's going to be that consistent perpetual cycle, and that self-sabotage is just going to burn you out. So I would recommend not being a pushover and setting really healthy, firm boundaries from the get-go. The other thing too is self-respect on just knowing your energy exchange and that worth. And so, for example, I teach you Soy Reiki, Karuna Reiki, same idea, but the biggest thing is equal energy exchange. I used to try and be that people pleaser. I call myself a recovered people pleaser, if you will, because I get that. I do. And the thing is it was something unhealed within me. So as soon as you work on yourself and you become the healed healer, you no longer have that. So I worked on me. I love me enough to know that I don't need to do that anymore. So I'm not calling anybody out, but when you work on yourself, it helps.
It has to start with you. Yeah, absolutely.
It does. It does. And like the hard part too is some people don't see that until it's too late, and then they get that burnout and then they lose their fire for their career. And I would much rather be that blunt, honest friend or coach or whatever we're calling us right now, and then just say, hey, if you can fix it today, you get that longevity in your career. Because like I've been since 2005, like that's a long time working for myself. And like I joke, my boss is a real hard ass, but the thing is I still love it. I still love it because I've given myself that respect factor, and I know what's good and what's not. And I've burnt out enough already to know that I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So the next part that I would recommend in that is that energy exchange. If you keep giving more than what you're going to get back, you will end up hurting yourself. And not only that, that relationship is not worth it because they don't respect you enough in the first place. And so Usui Reiki, the whole principle in it is if there's not an equal energy exchange, they won't appreciate it. They won't utilize it. It's like when people give things away for free, people think it's a joke, or they don't actually take it because it's not seen as worthy. And so if that's the case, what ends up happening is you're doing it all for naught anyways. So you might as well raise your price. You might as well set the time schedule. You might as well say no to the bonuses that they're trying to wheel into the negotiation when you already had firm boundaries in place, and have a contract written so you don't have to say the awkward things in case you struggle on those voices. And let awkward silences happen on sales calls if they need to. And so that would be some of the boundaries that I would set, just to know your worth and allow the right people to work with you so you can deter the wrong ones, because you might be scrounging for scraps in the beginning, but you'll keep scrounging for those individuals if that's what you continue to attract, in my opinion.
It's absolutely, you're so right, because quite often people get themselves into that push, and they don't leave the space for the actual ideal client to come in because they're just so busy. And it's never, let's be honest and upfront about it, to build your own business is never about the money. Although of course there's an element about the money, but it's not just about the money. Otherwise we just go and get a high ass paying job and just do that, and not have, and not have to deal with the boss and take your 4 weeks holidays a year minimum and your sick pay and whatever. But when you build a business for yourself, you do it because there's heart in it as well. But quite often we're our own worst enemies. And if we don't treat ourselves well, how I like to think of it is, how are we teaching our kids, our clients, the people we want to work with, how are we teaching them how to handle themselves if we're not being the people that are teaching them how to do that?
That's just it. And so it will continue to replicate down the line. So as long as you set a healthy boundary and honor yourself, you're setting a standard, and that precedent will carry forward in your day-to-day.
So how do you go about, for you personally, marketing yourself? Because you have a lot of skill and it's a little bit different. And as you say, there may be some skeptics out there. So how do you go to position that to market yourself?
Honestly, I find authenticity is the biggest thing. So I could come off and pretend I'm the next Long Island medium, but that's not me at all. So I joke about it, but I made a podcast called Mom Bun Media. I live in a mom bun. I'm at this whole version of my life where normally I'm not always on screen. So I get away with it. But the biggest thing is just making it natural. Like I'm not here to sell it so it's a big fancy showcase. I'm not trying to make it a production. I'm trying to normalize the topics and conversations that are going to happen with success. And so in that, I find a lot of individuals think that, well, I don't have the time, or I don't have the resources, or I'm not all put together like X, Y, Z. And they do that compete, compare. And in reality, I find these healthy, authentic, vulnerable conversations are what puts me in these really amazing networking opportunities where it just naturally does actually happen. It might be the law of attraction and just the way that it kind of plays in, but there's so much opportunity out there too. And it's just not saying no. So part of my grief journey, I go back to that because that was a really wild year. But I did a year of yes, and I didn't tell anybody. I did a year of yes because I knew what I was doing. I was introverting and I was really in a lot of pain. And I turned into a bit of a workaholic to try and avoid it because that was the healthy thing I thought to do. By the way, I'm laughing at myself right now, so don't do that. Lessons. But the biggest thing is honestly, I did a year of yes, and I didn't tell anybody. So anything I got invited to, I said yes, because I wanted to make sure I didn't hurt myself in my grief, and I wanted to just continue to grow. But don't tell people you're doing it because some people might take advantage of that. But it happened very naturally. So I was invited on a bunch of podcasts, and then I really liked it. So then I started kind of brainstorming my own podcast, and then that kind of was getting birthed. And I joined a mastermind, a high ticket coaching, and then it kept progressing. And then people were asking how to work with me. So then I created a program for them specifically to work with me. And it was one of those things where then it changed and adapted over time. But the minute you start saying no to what makes you happy, it really starts to take a toll. So the yeses were authentic yeses, by the way. It wasn't
Yes.
forced, but it was all opportunities that felt right. I want you to
Yeah.
listen to that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a very good point. And similar to yourself, I know a similar grief journey, and it can be all encompassing. And as much as there are books written on it, but there's actually no perfect rule book about grief or the relationship you had and how it should be, would be, could be, and all different things like that. So it can be quite easy to lose yourself in that.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I know some people, had an experience lately when I did a corporate event, and one person, and I think that person's loved one was dead 10 years, and they still could not talk about it without being unconsolable.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get upset when you talk about that person, but if you're getting that like this person couldn't talk, then that's stuff that is unresolved and it
Yeah.
needs to be dealt with because it's actually damaging you. And I'm not talking about, before anyone jumps on me, I'm not talking about saying you should forget your loved one or you should get over it. It's not that. Like I know, Melissa, similar to yourself, I've lost a beautiful sister. Every time I say lost, I go, no, I haven't lost her. I know where she is. But I'm so grateful for having that person in my life.
Yeah.
And same with my parents. I'm so grateful I had them. Yes, do I miss them? Of course. But I can talk about it just like you can. And every now and again, I have my little cry and she visits me often and that sort of thing. But I think when it triggers you to that high emotional state, it has to be something that is unresolved within yourself and it's doing damage within yourself. Would you agree with that?
I love that you brought that up because it's not talked about enough. So deep cellular healing is something that I learned over the years, and this was before I lost my sister. And then when it happened, it just really clicked on how important it was. But if we do have a misalignment on a mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual level, it creates a disengagement within all of us. All of those bodies are one body. It's a vessel. And so I kind of joke about it, but basically I think we're a soul riding a meat suit in this life. And we've just got so much to learn from every experience. But if there's something unhealed in us, we are carrying that. And if we continue to carry that trauma, we are reliving that. And so I agree with you. There's some individuals that say that they're healers, but they've not healed their own trauma. So then they have a bias, or they have like a wall, or they have some unhealed, when you deal with people who have transference and countertransference and communication issues. And so, for example, if anybody's listening and doesn't know what that means, transference is like your client dumping their whole life on you and you take it on. Countertransference is you as the therapist dump it on your client. If you are being a healer and you're dumping your stuff on your clients, you're not healed. So you're actually doing more damage than good. And I had paid for a reading and I had the person crying during my session to me. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, I am not working right now. Like I am not supposed to be doing this right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's when we have to understand who is a healed healer and who isn't. And I believe we're all healers. But the thing is if we're not owning that, if we're not working through that, Colette Baron Reed kind of says it best. I'm a little blunt. Sometimes I swear, but I love the name of your show, so we're going to go with it. But she says, if you were going to sit in victimhood, you were deciding to sit in your shit diaper. Do you want to sit in your shit diaper? You get to decide to change it. She has a very powerful story, and like I agree with you. I love my family. I'm not saying get over your loved ones. You need to feel the emotions. Like I had to feel each layer.
Sit in that shitty diaper.
Sit in the shitty diaper. But don't choose to keep wearing it if you want to be free. Like if you want to be free, you have to do that work. And so like you had said, the books. Okay, so for like on grief, let's just touch on it. They say first there's denial, anger, sadness. Then they go into bargaining, which is the woulda, coulda, shouldas. And then you go into acceptance. But I always like to add the sixth one in, which is truly, what is the lesson? Like what did our souls learn? Why did this experience happen for us, not to us, in order for us to grow and expand? And what can I take in a gratitude formation? So my sister died from a fentanyl drug overdose. That is a really shitty opportunity that happened, but I'm grateful she had a son. I got to foster him. My parents adopted him. We get to see a piece of her every day. The biggest thing is now we're a voice for the overdose and the mental health struggles and the break in our system that our government has. And then we just try and normalize these conversations that so many people build a wall on. And then from that, we've actually had people come to us and say that they got help. They had the awkward conversations because we inspired it or whatever. And the thing is just from our crummy event, it turned into an opportunity for somebody else. And for that, I have gratitude.
Yeah.
And so like it's changing the narrative. And I find a lot of times in business and life, we tend to hold on to, for example, if somebody cuts you off in the morning, you're like, fuck my days, just what a start to the day. And then some people but this is seriously what I teach in my mentorships and stuff. But I say, change the narrative, change it right then and there. Don't allow that one incident to change it all. So then I'll create something comical because I have a weird sense of humor and I think it works, but I'll go, that person must have diarrhea. They need to find a toilet right now. Bless your heart. Go find it. I wish you well. And the thing, it changes the whole vibration. And so that is my tone to it. It's not, I don't say that in a reading, by the way, because it's a very sensitive topic when people come for me.
Of course. But the thing about it is, everything is all made up. Yeah, it absolutely is. Like, technically, we're all made up of atoms. I should be able to put my hand through the bloody wall behind me, except our belief system doesn't allow us. And from childhood, we get to know what's good, bad, right, wrong, or whatever we want to put on it. So we bring that with us, and we believe that we have to stop at a red light, we have to go at a green light. Well, it's like, okay, that's an agreed meme that we've all decided, but really somebody somewhere just made it up. And we decided to agree. So they're like these kind of agreements that we have throughout life. And one of the things, and you touched on it just now with your sister, was the topic of mental health. It's not talked about enough. People come out and say, mental health's not talked about enough. It's still not talked about enough. And we touched on that yesterday in the interview with this idea of burnout. And we even got to the stage, Beverly was sharing, like she said, I got to the stage that I didn't want to be here anymore. But the thing about it is, when you're in, and especially, not exclusively, but especially, I have, as a strong woman, I have dealt with, other women that are strong women. They're afraid to admit something like that because then it's frowned upon as, oh, we can't ask her to do anything because she feels like that. There's something wrong with her. There's something wrong with him. So people get shunned because they have what's classified as a mental health issue in today's society. So being able to bring up those conversations and those awkward conversations and to somewhat tweak the narrative and start to change it, because I think there's still a humongous amount of work to be done on that, in general, is something that I highly commend that you're doing. It's amazing to do that. And as you said, seeing that as an opportunity. People think I'm weird sometimes when I said, the minute my sister passed away, it was like, I'm so grateful. I put up a post about being so grateful, and they're going, how can you be grateful right now? It's like, because I choose to be. Because if I'm not, I will disappear into a puddle. It's the truth. But it is a choice. And I think we don't always get rid of that old behavior. It comes up, and it's in that second. It's only in that triggering second that you can decide. I don't quite go the diarrhea route, but I do go, oh my God, that person must be in such a hurry. Off you go safe, blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, putter. Isn't it great that I'm not in a hurry at all? But I do think that is the greatest opportunity, is awareness and being able to change it in that kind of moment. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying there's a comment here. Awesome. So I saw there was a comment came through, but it looks really bizarre comment, so I have no idea what it means. I've just looked at the time as well, and it's been amazing to chat with you for this long already. I think we could talk for a lot longer. So, using your intuition as an entrepreneur, in your opinion, how much stronger does that make you and more successful by actually joining them together?
Honestly, I feel like some of the most successful business entrepreneurs, they are intuitive. They are listening to their gut. That's clear cognizance and inner state of awareness and just having that inner knowingness. But the biggest thing is knowing who to trust, knowing what to invest in, understanding what's in your highest regard versus what's popular in the now moment, and jumping onto the fads. And so the biggest thing is just using it in a simplicity aspect of that tone, but to even understand how you can actually pivot too. Because like I find a lot of people intuitively will get a pivot, a natural opportunity that will come kind of like a crossroads. But if we're an ego, we're not listening to that because we've put so much time, energy, and effort into maybe one specific focus or goal. And so it helps prevent the burnout. It helps prevent those misalignments down the road. And I've pivoted so many times as my priorities have pivoted. I find intuition just keeps leading it. And so success-wise, honestly, opportunities continue to happen. Connections continue to happen, just like today with you. So thank you. The find gems of moments in life. Like it keeps blowing up from there. And every time it just gets better and better. And sometimes the ideas that I wouldn't have even had get projected forward in an opportunity and an offer. And it's just finding that yes, like again, just saying yes and allowing that to be an authentic yes is really important.
And from what I'm hearing, it's also about like, it's like leaving the gateway open. Mm-hmm. And allowing it to come in a way and trusting yourself that you will know when it's an intuitive yes. And that's a big ask, to trust yourself when you've been taught sometimes in a work or lifestyle environment that you're not good enough, you're this, you're that, you're the other. But it is sometimes putting your hand on your heart and go, how do I actually feel about this, rather than just making an assumption whether it's good, bad, right, or wrong. In what you do at the moment, how important is the use of video in what you do, or is it important at all?
It is. So like I have a membership site. It's called the Awakened Sisterhood. We go live every month, and then I go through the Q&As and everything. And like right before I jumped on here, I was doing my one-on-one coaching with some of my elite members. And it's just one of those things where I get to really touch on the opportunity to connect in that way too. And whether it's intuitively, whether it's doing a reading, whether it's coaching, it's very personable compared to having kind of that pull back. I find it's a different world that we're living in too right now. So whether it's video or in person, it's connecting again. And that's what we all need. And so I find video is very helpful. Also, it kind of depends on the learning structure of your client. So like I'm a very visual learner. Some people are very oriented on hands-on or PDF kind of written. So it depends, I guess. But for me, I love it.
It's the next best thing to the in-person when we couldn't do in-person. I mean, I was doing all in-person events until things changed, and I was resistant. I always did a lot of online stuff, but I was resistant to putting my trainings online because I thought, no, they need to be in a room with me. And you know what? It has just opened it up to a wider audience, from US to UK to anywhere in between, and obviously here in Australia. It just opened up a lot more. And I think a lot more people have been pushed to either using live video like this, or using video even in their marketing, because it can tell a story so much quicker than just a static image. And of course, it's been shown a lot more with social media too. So we've come to the end of our interview. It's been amazing to have you. So if people wanted to contact you, I'm going to put up your LinkedIn on the screen right now. This is where you are on LinkedIn. This is one of the ways they can contact you. Yes. And by all means, guys, you can please message under wherever you're seeing this, you can message under there if you haven't quite got it, and I'll add the link in as well. And also you can email Melissa directly as well. This is her email address that's coming up on the screen right now. And of course, if you want to contact me, my website is down below, and you can also find me on YouTube. You can find me anywhere. Carmel Anywhere apparently is my nickname, or has been for some time. So for now, though, I would like to say a huge thank you to Melissa for joining us. And I have one last question before we go. And that is, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing instead?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm a traveler and I'm not able to right now. So if I could pick anything, I would be at a beach. I had a retreat set in Costa Rica right before COVID set down, and I want that. I want that so bad right now.
Awesome.
And so that would be me.
Awesome, cool. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's late, it's nearly 10 p.m. your time, but it's okay. Tomorrow is looked after. I'm already here.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate you. And thank you for the forecast on tomorrow.
Okay, guys. So thanks for hanging out with us. And remember to subscribe, or if you're watching this after it's been live, to put any comments below, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. But for now, it's a bye for me.
Bye. Thank you.